She was already standing at the window when I backed out of the driveway at 6:47 every morning. I didn't notice it for the first 3 weeks. Then one Tuesday, running late, I glanced up, and she was there, Margaret, my neighbor of 14 months, one hand pressed flat against the glass, watching me go. Not waving, not smiling, just watching, with an expression I couldn't read from 30 feet away in the dark. I drove to work with my hands too tight on the wheel. I told myself it was nothing. People stand at windows. People look at things. But the next morning I checked, and she was there again. And the morning after that. And the one after that. By the end of that week, I had started glancing up every single morning without thinking about it. The way you check your mirrors, automatic, involuntary, a reflex I hadn't chosen. Margaret was always already there, always the same posture, always that unreadable face. I did not know what she wanted. I was not sure I wanted to find out. Margaret was 63 and had lived in the house across the street for 11 years before I moved in. She had a daughter named Cora who visited on Sundays, a silver sedan she kept cleaner than any car I had ever seen, and a garden in the front yard that was, without question, the most organized thing on our street. Roses in straight rows. A bird bath she wiped down by hand. No dandelions. None. I had lived across from her for over a year, and we had exchanged maybe 40 words total. Hello, nice weather. Your recycling bin blew over. Thank you for telling me. She was not unfriendly. She was simply contained. A person who kept her interior life interior. So why was she watching me leave? The question would have stayed theoretical, would have never made it past that low, uncomfortable buzz in the back of my brain, except that 3 Sundays after I first noticed, I was pulling weeds from the strip of ground between my driveway and my front walk, and Cora came across the street. She was 30-something, had her mother's eyes, and walked like someone who didn't waste movement. She crouched down on the other side of my fence, waited until I looked up, and said, without any preamble at all, "Mom told me to come ask you something." She wanted to do it herself, but she said she didn't want to make it weird. I sat back on my heels. What is it? Cora looked at the roses across the street for a second, then back at me. She wants to know if you're okay. I stared at her. She said she asks because she noticed, and I'm quoting her directly here, that you leave every morning at exactly 6:47 and you always look at your phone before you get in the car, and for the last 2 months, your face when you look at that phone is the same face she had the year her dad was in the hospital. Cora paused. Her words, not mine. I told her this might be none of our business. She said she already knows that. The ground under my knees was damp. I was aware of my own breathing. She's been watching me to see if I'm okay, I finally said. Every morning, Cora confirmed. She said she figured if it was nothing, no harm done, but if it was something, she'd rather know. I had been checking my phone every morning because my mother had been in an oncology unit since October. The call I was dreading could come any time, and it would come to that phone, and I had developed the habit of checking it one last time in the driveway before I drove somewhere I couldn't pull over safely. I had not told anyone on the street. I had not told anyone much at all. I was doing the thing you do when something is very bad and you are not ready to put words to it yet, which is act as normal as you can and hope the normalcy holds. Margaret had seen through it from across the street, in the dark, at 6:47 in the morning, through a window. I looked at Cora. I said, "Please tell her I'm not okay, but I'm going to be. And tell her thank you for asking." Cora nodded once, started to stand, then stopped. She'll probably want to do something. Bring food, or she's a doer, my mom. A small pause. I'd let her. She went back across the street. I watched her go inside. I saw the curtain in the front window move, just slightly. The first thing Margaret brought was soup. She left it on my porch with a note that said only, "You don't have to eat it alone, but you're allowed to." That was a Thursday. I ate it alone at my kitchen table, standing up, in my work clothes, at 7 p.m., and it was the first hot meal I'd had since the previous weekend, and I cried into it a little, which surprised me, because I had thought I was past the part where I cried into things. The second thing she brought was company. She knocked on a Saturday morning, asked if she could sit on my porch for a while, and then sat in my second chair for an hour and a half drinking coffee from a thermos she had brought herself and talking about nothing urgent. Her roses, a book she'd read, a restaurant on the other side of town she thought was overrated. She did not ask about my mother. She did not ask me to talk about anything. She just occupied the other chair, and the porch felt different with someone in it, the way a room feels different when someone else is breathing in it, slightly less hollow. I said, "At some point, you do this for people, don't you? Notice when they're not okay." She thought about it. "I do it for people I can see," she said. "I can't fix what I can't see." "What made you start watching me specifically?" She turned her coffee cup in both hands. "Honestly, the first morning I saw you check that phone in the driveway, I thought you were just running late and looking up a traffic report. The second morning, I thought the same thing. The third morning, I thought, that is not what that face looks like. And you just kept watching until I knew whether it was going to stay the same or get worse." She looked at me steadily. It was getting worse. It had been. I hadn't admitted that to myself, but it had. My mother came home from the oncology unit in February. The news was not perfect. It was the kind of news that comes with follow-up appointments and statistics no one wants to do the math on, but she came home, and home was better than where she had been. I called her from my driveway the morning after she was discharged, at 6:47, the same time I always left. I sat in the car with the engine off and talked to her for 20 minutes about nothing important. The way you talk to someone when the important thing is just that they're there to answer. When I finally got out of the car, Margaret was at her window. I waved. She waved back. It was the first time she'd waved back, and I understood all at once that she had been waiting for that. For a morning where the face I made looking at my phone was a different face than the one she'd been watching for months. I don't know how to explain what it costs to be the kind of person who watches. Not to fix, not to interfere, not to make anything about themselves, just to pay attention, steadily and quietly, across a street, through a window, for months, in case it matters. Margaret never told me it was hard. I suspect she would say it wasn't. I suspect she has been doing it her whole life, and it is simply what she does with mornings. But I know what it is to be on the receiving end of that kind of watching. It is the most careful thing anyone has ever done for me, and they did it from 30 feet away, before the sun was up, without ever being asked. I brought her roses in April, ironic given hers, and she laughed and said they were a little crooked, and she put them in a glass on her kitchen windowsill. And they were crooked, and she kept them until they were done. Cora came by again that month. Not on a Sunday, a random Wednesday, catching me at the mailbox. She said, "She talks about you now, at dinner." A pause. She doesn't talk about many people. She looked like she was deciding whether to say the next thing. She said it. She told me she was afraid, those first couple of months. She said she kept thinking, if she's not okay and I don't ask, I have to live across the street from that for the rest of my life. Knowing I knew. I stood at the mailbox for a moment with the mail in my hand. "Tell her I'm glad she knew," I said. Cora nodded. I think she is too. I think about what it means to be known from a distance, to have someone read your face through glass at a distance of 30 feet, in the dark, before the world is properly awake, and decide that what they see is worth showing up for. I did not earn that. I did not ask for it. It simply happened because I live across from a woman who looks out her window in the morning and pays attention to what she sees. I check my phone every morning still. The dread is mostly gone now, replaced by the usual low-grade anxiety of being alive, which is manageable. But every morning when I look up, Margaret is not always at the window anymore. She doesn't need to be. And the mornings she isn't there, I notice the absence the way you notice when a sound you'd gotten used to stops. And the mornings she is, I always wave first now. She always waves back. Think about the people in your life who show up quietly, not loudly, not dramatically, not asking for anything, just steadily, from a little distance, paying attention in case it matters. Have you ever realized that someone was watching over you long before you knew you needed it? And that when you finally understood what they were doing, it was almost too much to hold? If that question landed somewhere specific, if a face came to mind, tell me about them in the comments. I want to know who your Margaret is. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.